Welcome to People Love Process. Now, this whole video will be ad-libbed. I'm just pulling this from the top of my head. Don't really have any intro script that I normally tend to write. That's because this is a little different in that I was contacted by a friend of mine who runs an agency, and whenever he approaches one of his clients or potential jobs and he thinks it could be improved upon, he'll contact me and ask me, how much. And that's basically what this image is I don't even know what the type of client is, specifically just how much to recreate wolf art like this. Well, I named this one, if you look at the layers, Big Bad Wolf, because this is about as bad as it gets when it comes to vector art. Now, I didn't have the vector art file to look at. I can just tell that by these vertices, these sharp points jumping out. If I had to guess, I would say this is really bad clip art that was image traced, and this was the result of it. The cherry on top of the crap sundae here is the TM, which kind of cracks me up. It's like, okay, I don't think they have to worry about people wanting to rip this off and use it. So anyway, I gave him a price. I've been waiting now for about 2 weeks to hear back if he wants me to start, but I was like thinking about this. I'm going, wolves are cool. I've done one other thing with a wolf theme, but it was kind of a wacky, kind of disproportionate style. Eventually, I'll probably put that on this channel. It's something I did for when I was doing my DVG lab series on Behind the Paywall at LinkedIn Learning. And I've taken a lot of that content, republished it, improved upon it, and that's one of them I might bring back at some point. I don't know. So before we jump into this, I decided that I'm just going to preemptively go ahead and create a design direction based off of a wolf, based off of the same kind of general approach. I'm going to make it symmetric, even though this artwork, it might intended to be symmetric. Now that I look at it, the interior shapes of the ears are the same on both sides. But anyway, we're going to improve upon this. I decided, regardless if this project goes through or not, I want to create a wolf. I was kind of in the mood, and so to do that, so I started on this yesterday and put everything together, and I was going to record it yesterday to get it done before the weekend, and then my screen capture software stopped working, and it took me 2 hours to figure out it wouldn't work until I updated my OS. I hate when that happens. That's why I usually do not have auto update turned on, but I do on this machine because I always try to use the latest. And if you look at the top, you're seeing we're using Adobe Illustrator 2026. This is the most recent version. It's also the version that they have proclaimed publicly that the snapping issues in Adobe Illustrator have been fully resolved and fixed. And I can say from recording, not recording, but doing a live session with going through my logo session that went up this week on my YouTube channel. I did it with a community college that's affiliated with Tulane University, and that was a lot of fun. And I used this latest version, didn't have any hiccups, and I've recorded one content, which is that same series I did in the session that is now up, and I use Adobe Illustrator 2026, and that didn't seem to have any issues. And so we're going to be building something from scratch. The first time I'm actually building something from beginning to end in Adobe Illustrator using the latest version, so we'll see how that snapping goes. And with that said, and by the way, I don't know if this project will ever happen or if the client will even like the direction I come up with, but if the project is green lighted, I'll do another design direction. I'll present two and I'll let them pick. We'll see how it goes. But with that said, let's get started. So where I'm going to start on this one is I'm going to derive some of the colors. You see I have black, I have white, I have these. We're going to go ahead and just select the eyedropper, and I'm going to select this one. I'll go with this dark gray. We're going to go with this light gray, and this one will be the eyes, but I don't like the color they have in here. So I'm going to go up here and select a richer kind of golden kind of color. And this will be our, what I would call raw colors to base with. We're going to have black in it. We're going to have a dark gray, a light gray, the color of the eyes, and of course we're going to have white. So all those will play a part. Now, when I start on this, I want to get good reference. Now, wolves can look extremely cool if they're stylized and they have a lot of different emotions that you can capture in a wolf. This is going to be symmetric because we want it still kind of presented the same way, straightforward. But a wolf can be subdued, kind of like what you see at the top here, not intense or aggressive. It can be overly aggressive. Now, this is actually a real wolf, but it's, what do they call it, where they like stage it and stuff it. God, I can't think of the name off the top of my head. I was just talking about this with a friend yesterday. Where it's a real wolf somebody shot, and then they had, I can't remember the name of the profession that does this. This always happens in the morning before I have my nice dose of coffee. But this one's overly aggressive. So the reason why I put this in is I didn't want to get overly aggressive with it, especially that is a decision you have to make when it comes to the genre that it's being applied to. Now, if you go back and look at the Big Bad Wolf, this is pretty subdued. So I think that's more in line with the top. This is way too aggressive. Oh, taxidermiist. So that's what I was talking about, where they took a wolf that shot and they put glass eyes. These are obviously fake teeth, probably plastic or molded. But a wolf does and can look very aggressive like that. I think showing a little hint at, how aggressive a wolf can be is even better. So this isn't over the top, but at least shows some teeth. I think that's what kind of makes a wolf, is those characteristics. So we're going to approach it kind of like the bottom, but obviously the full head. Like here, I find reference. I could tell this one was, they took photographic elements and probably ran it through AI or whatever. We're not doing that, but sometimes I'll use reference like that. So I like the nose. I like the shapes of the nose. We can work off of this. But I'm not going to do anything what I would call realistic on this. This is all going to be stylized. But this is what I'll start working from to work out a drawing. And this was my symmetric drawing that I created here, and this was just a sketch that I printed out this, and then I worked from that just to figure out how to form the shapes. And I'm always thinking shapes when I'm drawing a design like this, trying to figure out what shapes are going to be the easiest to create in Adobe Illustrator. And this is just symmetric drawing 1/2. Now, I always test it, so I'm going to bring this into Photoshop, and I'm going to test it to make sure that that symmetry is going to transition from left to right. And I thought this one looked pretty good. And then I always do a test fill where I go ahead and fill it in just to get a really good idea before I build any anchor point to see if this is going to work. Now, it's at this point that I had stopped working on this and set it aside. Actually, I think I did all this on Thursday, now that I'm thinking about it, because it was yesterday. I'm getting ready to record, and I'm looking at it, and I'm going, this part up here looks a little weird, because I like the fact that this piece right here, you can see this line, this will be colored the same as the top area of his head. It'll probably be a dark gray. But I like how it flows down into this and defines that edge of his ear. But here, the back edge of the ear just kind of fuses into here. And I think this looks a little overcomplicated. And I wish on this section here, I would have followed the contour on this side here like that. So I think I need to redraw that part. And down here with the eyes, this is coming out of a dark area. This shape under the actual eye itself is going to be a darker gray like the top of the head because not a lot of light is hitting it. And I don't think this looks bad. I just think I could handle this area, these shapes here under the eye better. So those are the things I'm always trying to art direct myself on. And if I turn this on and you pay attention to the top area under the eyes, this is what I revised it to. And I think this looks a lot better. So before, after. So under the eyes, the top of the head is more simplified in terms of shape and form. I think that communicates a lot better. And on the side over here, I'd already drawn this coming out, but this goes straight, and that's a little boring. So I kind of brought a little more characteristic into that edge as well. Not a huge change, but always good to art direct yourself as you're going through the process. So this is what I'm going to build on. So I'm just going to select this. I'll go to transparency. I usually set it around 15, 20%, lock the layer. And then on a layer above it, on this build layer, and by the way, even now that I'm using 2026, at least in the recording booth on my workstation, I'm still rocking the old version because I'm a very late adopter now because I don't like running into surprises. There might be some pop-ups that happen. I don't know. They have this BS AI thing down here. I'm not even going to click that or find out what that is. I just avoid all the little things. You know, they had the recently used swatches that'll show up. I turn that feature off. I don't care about that. Some new features are great, not all of them, and I like my process just smooth, clean, basic. So where are we going to start on this? Well, I always say, and I usually show you if I deconstruct a process, here I'm just creating from scratch, so you're going to see everything, and at a certain point, I may keep building it, but decide to turn that into a timeline just for the sake of brevity and kind of lower the length and time of the movie that I put on my channel. But the only problem I've been running into with that is even though I used royalty-free, copyright-free music that gives you the user permission to use it in YouTube contents, all the trolls on YouTube always file a copyright complaint against videos that I have time-lapse music in. And I always have to jump through the process and dispute it and show them the license code that Pixabay is the name of the site that I get most of the music. They'll provide me with the license. And I put that in my description in the movie, and you would think YouTube's process is smart enough to figure out, no, he has the license. There it is right there. And I always have to hop through their stupid steps because they let trolls pretty much do whatever they want on YouTube. So that kind of sucks. So let's go ahead and start building this. And we're going to go down here, price select 0.5 for the line weight. I'm going to start with the simplest shapes, which are the eyes. So we'll start with elliptical shape. And because it's symmetric, I'm only going to do half of these. How thick is this? I think we're going to go even thinner to 0.25. I'm going to zoom in. I have a finite amount of time to do this because we have to leave my house. This is in my studio recording booth, but we have to leave my house, which my studio is in exactly, well, it's not going to take me 3 hours, but I have to have it done before we leave. So you can see my pupil wasn't exactly correct. So I'll put that where I want it, and then I'll adjust the size of this one. Something like that. This one's just a succession of the previous one, like that. So I think that's good. I'm going to go down here and just work out this shape. So I do have a guide here, and guides seem to be snapping better. That was another thing that I'd run into with snapping, is it wouldn't always, it acted like it was snapping to a guide, only to zoom in and see it wasn't exactly dead on. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to clone this. That's just for the top edge. I want to get the bottom angle on the bottom part of the nose. I'm just looking at this line. I'm not worrying about this right now. So that's fine. I'll select these two, unite it. That gives us most of what we need. And then I'm going to use the line segment tool, or the arc by points tool, part of Subscribe by Astute Graphics. This will give me that angle on the top left and bottom left. Then I'll just make it a closed shape, because I'm going to end up using rounding to do the rest of it. Then I'll clone this, Command C, Command F, or the F3 key if you use keyboard shortcuts. That's what I have that assigned to. Find a central anchor point. I have Smart Guides turned on, Command U. I only turned off if I'm doing really finessed vector work and it wants to snap to a stroke or another shape. I tend to turn it off when I'm doing that. So now we'll take these, we'll unite it. Unite will automatically make it a group. So I change it to a compound. That way it'll always work when I use Pathfinder methods like that. Now, this shape, this is going to be more organic, so I'm just going to build this. This is a good example of vector building, where I'm going to try to build this with the least amount of anchors, but enough to make it work well. So we have 4 anchor points there. Then I'll go back. And by the way, I'm using Astute Graphics plugins here. Now, if you want to bend a path like this and you don't have a plugin like Astute Graphics, this is where you'll want to go to the anchor point tool. This is how they ripped off Astute Graphics, and they shoved it. It didn't used to be called the anchor point tool. I can't remember what the name previously was. But this is what you would take if you don't have a plugin. Then you hover over a path with Smart Guides turned on, Command U, and you can bend it. That's all I'm doing. And if you want to do it natively in Adobe Illustrator, you can. But notice it doesn't give you any readout when you're over anything. So that's why I tend to use Astute Graphics. The specific plugin is called Vector Scribe, but the specific tool is Path Scribe tool. This is what Adobe borrowed or just ripped off and added in because they tried to buy Astute Graphics twice, and they didn't want to pay their employees, the Astute Graphics employees, any severance. So the owner didn't sell it to Adobe, which I kind of admired, that he stuck to his guns and said, no, you got to take care of my employees. They're the ones why this even works, you know. Anyway, that never happened. And so instead of licensing it from Astute, they rip off the feature, and it's not as intuitive. Because if you go to this and I go ahead, let's grab the right tool. We want the Path Scribe tool, and you go in here. So let's say I select this one. You know, you can do the same thing that I was doing this years before Adobe decided to add the feature because they couldn't buy out technology that they couldn't code themselves. So they just ended up waiting until somebody else did it and then they rip it off. That tends to be the case with Adobe on a lot of features like that. So I think that's pretty good, although this one's looking weird. So this is where I'm going to use another feature called the reposition point tool, where I'll click on this anchor and I'll bring it down to this tangent. And I think this shape looks more elegant. So that's how I'd make a shape like this. This was made with shapes. I cut off the sides. This here, we'll clone it. Command C, Command F, go to central anchor point, reflect it over. So some of the things, even though we're doing symmetric, I'm going to build out the head and the ears and all that. That'll be side by side. But this, we'll go ahead and unite it. By the way, it's at this point where I'd take a copy of these shapes, go to layers, and I'd just drag them up into the X file if I ever want to rebuild this or whatever. So I'll take these shapes minus front, so it gets all those shapes out of there. And then I'm going to build the little highlight we have here on the nose, like that. Copy this shape, position it down, something like that. So that's how I'd build the nose. Now this, I'm going to go in on here, and we can use the corner widget here, which is fine. We're going to put around just so it flows from the side into the top. And then we'll select these. And I'll put a nice little transitionary round that goes to the inside of the nose. Then we'll select these. And we'll round that out as well. Now, eventually I'll come back and do subtle rounds on these, but I'm not going to worry about that at this point because I want them to match. But I think I want those subtle rounds to match everywhere else in the design. So I'll do that as one of the last things. Okay, now we can start building these shapes. These shapes are pretty free form type of shapes. So I think what I'm going to do is build the muzzle type area first, the nose and the brow area. So let's start up here. I'll use this as my guide, and we'll go back to this tool. And this is why I love this arc tool, because I can just go here. I want it to go all the way here, and then I can just bend it up like that. And you get a perfect arc, a perfect curve. If you think it needs to follow your drawing, it doesn't need to be mathematically perfect. It just needs to align with what you've figured out in your drawing, something like that. Then I keep building with this because this is the type of idealistic artwork where it goes point to point, and wherever it comes to a point, gets a point. Those are the easy ones to discern in vector building. Like that. Then you just bend it. You don't have to touch any of the Bezier handles. Now this is going to be almost like a subtle S curve. So this is where I'll switch to just the pen tool, and I'll go here. I'm going to pull that out, come down here, and I'm going to go to right about here and pull this out like that. Then I'll come back up at the top. Notice PathScribe will show you a ghost handle, this little node there. That's why I love using these plugins. I don't have to do any extra work. I can just focus on pulling that out. And you can see we have that part of the curve. Then I'll adjust this to align it with my drawing. You see a lot of vector art where it has way too many anchors in it. And I'm not talking typography, because a lot of typography is converted from old formats like TrueType into OpenType, and those will add anchor points on curves and all kinds of crazy stuff. We're not talking about that. But when you're building artwork, you want to use the least amount of anchor points to create a line. So this one, I just have one anchor. There's no anchors in between here because I can form that with the Bezier curve. That's where craftsmanship comes in. If you can build this way and learn to build this way, you can create anything you want. So I'm going to pull this one out. So as we go into the next one, it starts forming that curve. That's what we want. And I think something right around here would be fine. Then I might end up removing that once I determine this one here. Like that. Put that there. I'm going to go up here. Just going to start there. Let's finesse. I'll continue it, but I want to finesse this curve down here. So I'm going to try something. This is where I'll use Smart Remove. And Illustrator, that's another feature they ripped off from Astute Graphics, the Smart Remove. Astute Graphics had it years before, like 7 years before Adobe ever added it in. And it still works better. So their math is better. Their coding is better. So thus the feature is better. And how they implement these features are way more intuitive than Illustrator's, in my opinion. Like Smart Remove, like I'm not even going to show you in Illustrator how to do Smart Remove because I can never remember it. It's like, I'll try to remember it. I think you select it like this and you go, I want to say do you hit the shift key? See, I don't remember. Or maybe you hold the shift key, but you have to go to this remove anchor point. You can't use the one in the control panel. If my memory serves me, that's not correct. You have to use this one. So you click on this one, you'll switch to that tool, and then you hold shift and you click on this anchor point. I believe that's how you do it. Yeah. So that's what you get. Notice it didn't retain that curve. So let's Command Z. This is what it was. So it changed the art. Let's see how Astute Graphics does. Now, there's certain geometries where it doesn't matter if it's Illustrator's a native method or a plugin. There's certain geometries, like if you decide to move a corner from one of the 4 anchor points of a square, and you're using Illustrator to do it or using Astute's plugin to do it, neither are going to work great because the geometry is not going to work out to make it retain a square. But this one, we should be able to make this by smart removing it. So you saw that Illustrator's method didn't work that great. Let's see if the one in Astute Graphics, which is part of the Vector Scribe, here's Smart Remove. We'll just click this. Wow. That's a great example of Astute doing it in such a way that it nails the geometry. It's perfect. It didn't change anything. That's what you want. That's what Astute shows you. It can be achieved, but it has to be well integrated and coded to achieve. It can't be half-assed like Illustrators tends to do with a lot of their new features. So that's awesome. Use a plugin. That's why I don't even bother using Smart Remove that Illustrator add in, because it's unreliable. You can't trust it. It's going to change your art. It's going to change the geometry that you're trying to achieve, which in my opinion is really stupid. Now, their corner widget is okay. I don't think it's the best implemented. It's certainly not as good as Astute's. I like Astute having its own dynamic corners because, one, you can set this like this, and if you like this radius, you just click on it and you can go to any other point, let's say this one, and apply it. Now, obviously, I don't want to do that, but that's why I love having options, and I think the bottom of the muzzle is looking pretty good. You know, we might come back here. Maybe we pull this down a little bit. This might be a little long. We can refine that like this. So I'm always kind of finessing stuff. I think that looks good. We'll continue building. So I'll go to this one. We'll start where we left off. And this will go into the curve that makes the brow above his eye. Make this straight, refine this. And we'll just keep building the shape until we close the shape. I wasn't sure what to call this, and I didn't want to put over, even though it's kind of over the shoulder vector building, I didn't want to put it into that series because I really like, I specifically, when I post a time lapse of this on Instagram eventually, I want to use Hungry Like a Wolf music because I think it'd go good. So that's why I named the file Hungry Like a Wolf. Of course, as I was drawing this, I'm humming that song. Okay, and now we have that shape closed. So that shape is going to inform on other shapes. Now, here's what a lot of people would do. Well, you have this, you could get these shapes like this. Well, I could go like this, I could go like this, and I could go offset path. But notice how it's just going to wig out the geometry. Illustrator, and I find this true in other vector apps I've tried as well. They don't do a good job on this either. I think this is something that could be improved upon, but it's only going to be addressed if the engineers actually run into it themselves or an agency that pays like WPP out of England, world's largest ad agency. They pay Illustrator upwards of $40 million a year to license Creative Cloud throughout all their employees and offices. If they complained about this, Illustrator would fix it so it wouldn't do this kind of crap. And this is what you might notice in the original Big Bad Wolf artwork that was the first thing I showed you in this movie. This is what you saw happen. This is why it happens. It's because you don't want to do this. I'm going to actually build this shape and just go off of, like when I drew it out, I didn't have offset. So just take the time to spend the time to do it the right way. It's just going to look good when it's all said and done. I think I'm going to build out some of these shapes like this. I always like keeping my stroke good. And then we're going to try some here. I'm going to bring this in. This is going to look bad initially, like that. I'll adjust it. I'll adjust this. I'm just thinking about my width. My widths are like that. Maybe this just needs to be a little thinner. Sometimes I have to deselect it and look at it. I think that looks okay. Make a copy of this, bring it to the front, select this, minus front. I don't know how I'll trim it, but you can see this line will run through all this. So because I'm not sure where that's going to be, I'll just trim off the part I absolutely know I don't need. And then we'll address that when we figure out that. Okay, let's go ahead and create this top shape. Or actually, before we do that, let's focus on the ear. Sometimes I'm building the interior shapes like I did here, but like on the ear itself, I think I'm going to go ahead and build the outer shape of the ear. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and create the inner shape. We'll build these shapes. You can see how with a tool like this, you can build these shapes really quick. You don't have to mess with Bezier curves because you're able to just distort the path and the arc of the path. Now we can come back to this one. We'll do it with the native way in Illustrator. We'll use the anchor point tool, grab it, and you can bend it. It's not that the anchor point tool won't give you precise curves. It's just takes longer to do things with it. Like that. Then we can close this shape. So we got most of the ear. The interior of the ear shape, I think I'll determine this once I build. Let's go ahead and build this outer shape here. So let's see. We'll start with the arc tool. I'll start from the central guide. Boy, snapping works so much better. It only took Adobe 12 years to finally fix it. But I've been hounding them on it for 20 years. It shouldn't have taken that long. Okay. Go like this. This might look weird, but we'll use the ear to get rid of the areas we don't need. Like that. I'm building the interior shape. And you can see my drawing's not perfect. I think this arch that I built is better than my drawn one. That's fine. Anytime you can improve things as you're going along, you definitely want to do that. And then now this is subtle S curve, but I'll get this curve, then I'll just grab this handle and adjust this one. And I'm kind of visually comparing it to this one, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think that's gonna work. That looks good. We'll keep building it using the arc tool. This is a small arc, but I don't want a perfect straight line. I want to have a subtle curve to it. And I like deselecting and looking at it. That looks fine. This one's an S curve, so I think it's a big enough S curve that we'll start here. I think we're going to want an anchor point right about here. Go into here. Inside my recording booth can get really hot. And it's not air conditioned. I have a fan I can turn on, but I don't like doing that because it can interfere with the audio. So I usually don't do that. But here, pardon me, as I take a drink of it's not an adult beverage. It's just looks like a summer glass now that I'm holding it. It's just apple cider. I never drink and build. It's never a good thing to do. Boy, the big bad wolf vector art They knocked back a few before they built that, it looks like. Okay, so now we're getting to the closing shape. So I'll go here. We'll put it right about here. Bend this last curve. That looks good. We'll go into here. We'll close the shape by connecting the ends like that. I'm going to go ahead and build this shape because we'll just minus front it from this other one. Do the bottom. Do the top. We'll close that shape. Making sure this is on top. We'll select it. Minus front, so we get that little detail in there on the brow. Now we'll make a copy of this shape, and just so you can see it, I'll fill it so it's sitting on this one, and we'll go minus front. That'll add it'll create that shape, so we don't have to build that. We can just get that from the previous shape we built. And I think that looks good. Let's go ahead and build this shape down here. And when I'm creating like this, if I'm not recording for my YouTube channel like I am on this one, I'm usually passively listening and making glances towards, like I just watched the movie Super 8 again. Just such a great movie. It reminds me of growing up because me and my friends used to do, well, we didn't have monsters chasing us, but we used to make Super 8 movies, and like we would pay my friend's brother, his name's John, we'll give you $3 if you jump your BMX bike off that, ledge into the tree. Okay. And didn't make any didn't make any sense in context of the movie we were making, but that's how we get stunts done, is his brother would be dumb enough to do it. It's a fun movie. I really like that movie. Okay. I'm not going to do this side because I think this example where I could offset this snout shape and it would give me most of that. And so I'm going to take advantage of that. It's only, you run into problems with offset when it's corners. For some reason, it doesn't produce very good offsets based off of sharp corners. Kind of messes up the mitering. Okay, then I'll go, I'm not going to worry about that subtle round here. We can create that after we get the base shape. So pull this out. This might look better, a little fatter on this end. Okay, I think that looks good. Let's go ahead and close this. And this is where I'm not going to worry about this side. I just want to close the shape. Now I'm going to take this and let's offset it. Path, offset, path. Want to turn this to round. Right now we're in inches, so we can go points. So let's go 8 points. You can preview it. Oh wait, do I have my document set in inches? I must have. Usually I have rulers turned off, and I did, so we're going to change that to points. We can leave rulers on. I usually turn off just so it looks cleaner, but in this case, that's a good reason why you don't want to use inches when you're doing stuff like this, because it doesn't mean anything to me. It's like, okay, but I think in points when I'm building vector art. So let's go ahead and do that again. Go back to path. We'll go to offset. Yeah, 8 I think might look better. See, I guessed 8 even though I was in inches. And there you go. It's like I literally think in points when it comes to vector art. And by the way, points are equivalent to pixels. Same thing. So if you do a design, it needs to be 1920 by 1080 pixels. If you build it in points, it's going to work. It's basically equivalent. Okay, let's go ahead and cut this here. I'm going to cut this one shy of that. We don't need any of these. We'll just delete that. Again, this is why I use plugins. I can go to the extend path tool, and this is where I can extend this geometry up here, and you can see it keeps that subtle curve. That's awesome. That's just good programming by Astute Graphics, and we'll go ahead and lock in that shape. Now this one, we'll just fudge it over, kind of like this. I might nudge it up one, like this. And on this one, I think I'm going to, we'll try something here. This is what I do. I don't do this a lot, but we have these two selected. I'm going to focus the rotate point here, and I'm going to rotate it. Notice how it's making the end a little thicker. Now, I don't want to overdo it because then you'll get something like that. But I do want to move it. Actually, let's do this. Let's do this one. Go to rotate, do it off of this anchor, and then there we go. So I do that every once in a while. There. I think that will work good. We can take this, if we fill it with blue, bring it to the front, select the shape on the cheek of sorts, and we'll go minus front to trim off that. And then this is where I'll come back in and I can use the corner widget to add that little round that is reflected in my drawing. But there was an old plugin I used to use, and it had a rounding tool, but it would do it, I don't remember the name, but it would do oblong rounding. And that might sound weird, but it's not perfect geometry rounding. It like would just kind of round it, but in an and I still miss that because I'd use that on this one. If I go into dynamic corners, which is here, I can choose instead of true radius, standard. And this will take the angle from each side and it kind of averages it. And for something like this, I tend to use it because it looks better than a perfect geometry one. I think that looks fine. So again, no reason why I use plugins. Oh, I forgot to refine this. Let's go ahead and do that before I go any further. Go to Path Scribe. I'll grab the ghost handle here. Like that. And this is, notice, this is broken. If I select this, it's showing that it's not, this is a corner. Well, this is a smooth anchor point. This is a corner. Those are the only two type of anchor points. This should be a smooth, but it's a corner. You can see it's subtly broken. But here's what's nice about Path Scribe is if I drag this back, an S will appear once it's smooth again. And if I click off of it and then readjust it, it'll act like a smooth anchor. That is one of the smartest features Astute ever came up with, which solves a problem that you're going to run into all the time in Illustrator otherwise, and it's not an easy fix. So that's why. And I asked, well, why does it break it again when I adjusted this one? This is where Astute told me, and this goes back years, that it's because of the way Illustrator's coded. It could be changed, but don't hold your breath. And I haven't, and that's why they added this, where I can bring this back and boom, S again. Now it's fixed. So again, they care about craftsmanship. They pay attention to details because John, who's their head engineer, did design. So he knows why these things are important. The engineers at Adobe, they don't use the software. I don't think most people understand that. They just don't build with it. They just code. And they're engineers. They're not creative people. If I would love to design something where I draw something out and I say, okay, build this and we're going to time you. And I could build it, I could work it out in such a way that they can only use AI's tools. And then I'd love to do almost like a Iron Chef competition between their own engineers trying to build artwork with their own native tools and me building it using Astute. That would be interesting. Now, here's a story. I don't know if I've told some people this story. So back when Macromedia Freehand was still rocking the scene, I was still using it. I hadn't switched to Adobe Illustrator, and then Adobe buys out Macromedia, and I knew Illustrator was coming to an end. It was around that time period, CS2 time period in Illustrator. I had a friend who was an art director at the Associated Graphics in New York, and I was in New York. Oh, so I do remember the year, 2008, because I was on the illustration conference board, and we were meeting at the New York Hotel in New York. We did that like 3 or 4 times over the year, and I was going to be there one time, and I emailed him, and he said, hey, when you're in town, let me know. I'll give you a tour of the AP art department. Associated Press has their own art department, and they provide graphics and stuff to newspapers all across the country and the world. And their art department only used Macromedia Freehand. They were concerned because Adobe had just bought them, and they had contacted Adobe and said, hey, can we do something? Can you send us your best Adobe Illustrator professional? We'd like to see how they could handle something compared to our freehand person. And it was of sorts an Iron Chef battle. Guess which one won? It was Macromedia Freehand, like in a landslide. It was amazing how much faster. And he told me, but don't say anything. I'm not supposed to talk to this about anybody, Well, it's been long enough now that Freehand's not even around, so it's okay to tell the story. But it's not that the best software won. It's because they had the bigger wallet. And that's usually the case. So I thought that was interesting. It's kind of a fun story that most people don't know. It's kind of like Betamax and VHS. VHS won the videotape battle, but it's not the best technology. The best technology was Betamax. I think Betamax was the name. All the news channels used Betamax because it had better quality, but the consumer market made VHS reign supreme. When you think about digital music, Sony should have won that. They had the Walkman before, the iPod ever came out, but okay. I'm building these separate because, well, I probably didn't need to do that, but this is a little tricky with the way we built the ear. I wanted that ear to be perfect, so that's why I built it that way, but okay. I think I need to adjust that just a bit. That's why I like these ghost handles. It just makes this go so much faster. Like that. We'll adjust this one. And I'm paying attention to the thickness here. This one needs to be over like that. Then I'll grab the arc tool. We'll connect these, add a subtle round there. This subtle round here. Okay, let's go back up here now. So we ended this one here. I'm just thinking, I think I kind of made this too over complex, but we'll use this. I'm going to go into isolation mode. I'm going to select this anchor. I'll retract this handle. This is the nitpicky detail of vector building at times, but we're going to go here to the extend path. And I think the way I want to handle this so I want to extend it there. This is going to be a little odd, but it'll work, I think. We'll snap it there. Okay. So that'll end up being this white shape here in the ear. I wasn't initially going to do that, but I think that'll work. We'll go ahead and retract this handle. That's fine. And then we'll bring this over and connect it to that. That'll all be resolved once we fuse shapes together. Kind of a weird way to do it, but ultimately we're going to take this shape. Let's go ahead and color it blue outline, just so you can see a difference. And then we'll take this, we'll clone it, we'll fill this with yellow because this will trim off the bottom part, like that. We'll take this shape, which is the ear, we'll clone it, fill this with green, sitting on top. It'll trim off the left-hand side of that inner shape, like that. And then we'll take this shape we initially built earlier, clone it, we'll film that with the tan, and this will trim off this top part up here. All to get that shape. So it is what it is. As long as it looks good, that's all that matters. Okay, let's go ahead and create all of these parts here because this is going to make up most of the design, the perimeter shape of the entire head. And you can see we're not worrying about that outline remaining the same weight down here because this is going into shadowed areas. So we want it darker. We want it to have ultimately more black in the design. Now, if you didn't have this arc tool to create these arcs like this fast, you'd have to use the pin tool where you just click, click, and then you'd have to switch to the anchor point tool and add that little bend in there if you didn't want it straight or adjust it like that. And you can do that. It's just going to take longer. So that's why anything that makes the process faster without compromising the precision, that's why, in my opinion, I pay for these plugins, But over the course of the year, one project, the amount of time I save in one project pays for the entire year's subscription for the plugin. So it's a no-brainer. This one, I'll pay attention to this curve, not this one, because I'll come back on the other one with the path scribe tool, grab the handle it's revealed, and adjust that to get the angle I want, like that. And then this one, I want this to curve. I think curve like outward instead, like that would look good. We'll do this one, so we're almost there. Never make something straight. Always add a subtle curve to it, especially in a design like this. Now, if you're doing an icon or a brand mark, that might, that's not a hard and fast rule. But when it's more an organic theme, not necessarily a shape, but a theme, like a wolf, animals have the perception of symmetry, but they're not perfect symmetry. Like that, we'll go all the way up, we'll close it. So now we have that shape worked out. For most of the base of the head, I think this is at the point I'll select, we're in isolation mode, let's get out of that. I'll select this minus the guide. I'll clone it, Command G, group it, and I'm going to move this into my vector storage layer, which is X. Now I'm going to take this ear shape that I have here, and if I remove that, you can see it's only defining the outer shape now because I created those interior shapes. So I'll just select this. And I mean, if you wanted to, we could go like that, not that. Go here, and I could make a shape like this. Then I could select this ear shape and unite it so it's just the profile. Then I can select the profile outer shape we just built and fuse this together like that. And so now we have most of the artwork, we have all the outer shape artwork for everything. Because we cleaned up this file, let's go ahead and just match it color-wise with what we have going with the magenta. And that's how I'd build this out. We just have a few more things to do. I want to hurry up and get to the coloring because I want to see what it's going to look like. I have a good idea based off my sketch, but I'll find out the same time you guys do. So here's that curve represented into the drawing here. So I do an arc to match it. Then I'm just going to do that. Now that I think about it, we don't even need that circle. Okay, so I'll take this, clone it, select the eye, minus front. We'll select this with this outer shape, and we'll minus front that, like that. And now I'm going to leave the pupil this way. I think here, something like that. Oops. Meant to do the corner widget like that. And I might adjust this corner here. Oh, looks like I have a, yeah, I might adjust this corner with a round and this one, but I'll do those subtle rounds later. I just wanted to get the big one there. I need another drink. It's getting kind of hot in here. So, okay. You can see all we need to do is just the bottom here. And these will be pretty easy shapes. So I'm going to start on this bottom one here. No. I'm going to start on his chin, the bottom chin. Because I think because this is so rounded, I can create an offset to get most of this shape on the bottom as well. I think that's fine. Make a copy of that shape, and I'm paying attention to the round on the side of his chin, like that. That looks good. We'll intersect these two. Intersect on PathScribe just means wherever two shapes overlap becomes the new shape, like that. This is where we'll select these anchors, and I'll round this to get that nice, elegant curve. It's almost like the bottom part of a squircle. It's not a perfect arch. It's more of a squarish round. I think that's fine. And we'll have this round for the bottom edge, defining his lip of sorts, and then these curves for the interior. I think that needs to be shorter. Then we'll distort it. Okay. This will I'll bring to the front. Select this shape, minus front. We'll fill this with blue so you can see it's on top of this one. But before I do that, let's go ahead and offset this. And we're going to use the same tolerance we established before, 8, which worked great on the muzzle. I think this is fine, like that. Now I'll take this shape with the chin shape and minus front, and now we have those shapes. This gives us most of what we need here, so I'll just continue from right about here, and I'll add this round, or a curve, I mean. Then I'll curve this. I'll curve this. By the way, I've said this a few times, but it might not be clear. Let's say you subscribe to Astute Graphics for a year and decide, well, you're not sure you've used it enough to continue your subscription. Well, you can cancel your subscription and you can keep using their plugins as long as they work, but you just won't get any updates to the plugins. So you could use them for several years after one subscription payment for 1 year, and you could use them for another 2-3 years. As long as they keep working in that version of Illustrator, you just won't get all the updates that they tend to put out for them, or the new features. So in that respect, it's even more reasonable in terms of their price, because most software companies wouldn't do that. But Astute is really good about providing that with their services and plugins. They also have new services now. They have, if you want to store all your, like Adobe said, you have to remove all your stuff from Creative Cloud, and they're no longer doing that. And a lot of people were working from the cloud. Astute has their own services now for that. And it's a lot more encrypted and secure than Creative Cloud ever was. So that's one thing they're doing, and they're providing those services to agencies, and they enable them so they can work. You can install a setup of a machine for an entire team within minutes. They've done a really cool thing. I haven't had time to take advantage of that yet, but I want to check it out and see if there's any way I could use it. So now we'll take this offset shape, bring it to the front, select this shape we just built, and minus front, and now we have this whole shape that we can reflect over there. We just have this furry piece, the teeth, and then we can start working out the base line work. Color it black and white, do all the subtle detailing, and then we'll jump into color and call it good. So let's go ahead and crank on what we have remaining. Oops. That tool does that sometimes like that. Okay. Click back on it, establish where you want to start, where you want to go, and round. I worked on a fun project I worked on this year was two guys who were Dungeons Dragons aficionados approached me and they asked me if I'd brand this app they're creating for dungeon masters to use. And, you know, they found me because I did the Dungeons and Dragons ampersand dragon. And I said, sure. So I worked on that for a couple months and I'm done with the branding. And sometime next year, I'll showcase it once it's public. But that was so much fun to work on. And I came up with a bunch of marks, and obviously they only go with one, so I might do something with that for the channel. Not their branding, but the unused ideas. That's the thing is, as a creative, more of your most of the ideas you come up with in the process of ideation are never going to see the light of day. They're never going to be used. That's just the reality of being a creative. So that's why I tend to put them to use in content for my YouTube channel, because I think they're teachable, help other people to improve their skills. Okay, I'm shape building here. And we'll take the shape. Oops. Boy, I have to say, it's so nice to not even think about snapping. It seems to just work now. Again, shouldn't have taken them 12 years, but I'm glad it works. Okay, we're going to clone this. Go to central anchor point. And by the way, a lot of people, it's like when I did the session, the logo session, I've done other sessions, and I go, okay, we're going to clone this, and I just hurry up and do that. And people get hung up on this. And this is a good example of a feature in Adobe Illustrator. Not clone, reflect is what I meant. The reflection tool. Okay, you first have to clone your shape or copy your shape like that. I've done that. Now you want to reflect it to the other side. So what you have to do is select the reflect tool, find a central anchor point. We'll go with this one. Click it. That defines the orientation. That's what that target is. Now to actually reflect it, a lot of people will go like this and it'll get something like this. Well, what you have to do is, yes, you define the reflection, hold shift down, click and pull down. Why is it that complicated just to do a reflect? That's something that, threw me off. I don't even think about it now, but when I first moved from freehand to Illustrator, there is a lot of basic functionality. I'm going, really? I need 3 selection tools? I only need one in Illustrator. That is the big first hurdle. This was one of the little ones I couldn't figure out. And then doing dotted lines. That was like, you could do it in your sleep with freehand. In Adobe, it's still kind of like, what? That makes no... So you have a dash that has no length. How does that make any sense? How is that intuitive? It's kind of silly, some of the stuff they do. Okay, we're going to take these two shapes, intersect them like that. Make sure this shape's on top. Select this bottom shape and minus front. Now we have the teeth. So now we have everything pretty much needed here. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to select everything minus the guide, clone it, group it, move it to my X layer. That secures it. And it's usually at this point, I usually don't save when I'm working here, but I have the risk of it crashing while I'm recording. It's nothing secure. So I'm going to go Command S just to make sure I don't lose anything. That's important. Actually, on my workstation that I use, not in my booth, I have autosave. Well, I don't even use Illustrator's own autosave because I don't trust it. I use Auto Savior, it's called, by Astute Graphics, and you can tell it when you want it, like how much it needs, how much time. Like if I just click on something, how much time, like every 15 minutes, but after I click on something, when couldn't it activate? And I set it for like 5 seconds. And it still seems to happen when I don't want it to because, anyway, but I do autosave. I don't do it on my workstation. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. The only part that's not reflected is his nose. So we don't have to touch his nose. So I'm going to select everything minus the guide. I don't need the guide. Minus the nose shapes, minus actually the chin and the teeth. Those are already transcending both sides. We'll just take these. I'll clone it. Command C, Command F. I have keyboard shortcuts turned on. So the F3 key. And by the way, if you want a simple device to program your own keyboard shortcuts into, if you run out of F keys on your keyboard, check out Sense Labs Quick Keys device. It's just a little device, but it's awesome. I was super impressed with using that. Okay, once I've cloned it, find a central anchor point, click and reflect over. So you can see everything we need is on this side. We're just going to go ahead and get rid of our guide. I don't need that now. Select the left and right of the outermost shape. We'll unite that together. I'll select the inner shapes here. We'll unite that together. Do his muzzle and his nose. We'll unite that together. We'll do the bottom part. So only when they're touching do you need to unite them together. This we're going to select, bring to front. We'll color this blue because we're going to minus front from this shape like that. This little highlight will just float in there. And I'm pretty sure we have everything. So let's do this. We'll select all these interior shapes. I'll deselect the pupils. We'll come back to that. Deselect the outermost shape. All of these, we'll just color white, get rid of the outline. This one, we can turn off our sketch now. We'll just go ahead and make this black. We'll send it to the back. Oh, his pupils. He's the ghost wolf. You don't have pupils. Okay, we'll bring these to the front. I have that as an F key, F5. Otherwise, you'd have to go to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. What's a lot faster? Hit an F5. That's why keyboard shortcuts are, in my opinion, they're essential if you want to be efficient with your time. We'll minus front these out. Those. Like that. And so this would be the raw black and white. This is where I'll go in and do subtle rounding. So let's go ahead and do that. I think all these dagger sharp points I'm going to go into and make sure I'm not on standard. I'll do true radius on these. And I just want to soften these. I don't want these to be dagger sharp. And whether it's the interior points or the exterior points, I'll do both. And I'm just going to do the left side, then we can reflect them over to the right so we don't have to redo all of this on the opposing side. Like that. And I like keeping all of them consistent. Now, can you round all the corners at one time? You can do that with the corner widget, but how do you, when you're zoomed in, that makes it really hard. And so this way I can zoom in and assure that I'm applying the same round. Does it take a little longer? Yes, but I'd rather do it this way than just kind of blindly do it by zooming out enough to see all the anchor points I need to select. Now it's going to be this side over here will be the same, but since they're fused together, we'll go ahead and do these. It just looks a little more human that these are rounded off, not so, dagger sharp precision, etc. We'll do the nose here because I think having it on these, especially the interior, the nostril, will look better. Even this doesn't need to be sharp. I think having that rounded. We'll come back. I'll round these, but those will be a little bigger rounds, so I want to keep these all the same. Did I do that one? No. When I used to use Macromedia freehand, there was no rounding. And so to do this type of rounding, you kind of had to do, it was kind of like a trick, a workaround to get that look. And it was like using the offset, and actually offset and freehand worked pretty good. So you didn't run into weird problems with the mitering that I was mentioning or talking about in the Bad Wolf artwork I showed you up front. But man, it took forever to do this. So I'd never do this on designs back then because there just was no easy way to do it. And it was pretty, I mean, even this, I would call this kind of tedious of sorts, but the benefit aesthetically of doing this, I think you just need to. It just looks way better. We'll add that on these sharp points. I'll add it here, on there. And I'll come back and do that one. I think that one needs to be a little bigger too. But this one, this is a good example of this one here. Because these are going straight, this is where I'm going to have to address this. And I figure out a way I'll do it, but I'll do that. I'll do that last, right before we color it. It'll be pretty easy. Let's see, where did I leave off? Okay. Okay, round corner there, we'll continue. Because this goes straight, it's impossible to round this. Neither the plugin nor the corner widget will do it. So we'll have to, I'll make one simple edit that will allow us to do it, but I'll leave that for last. Okay. Now I'm not going to do this up here because this is like going in under this shape. So that's not so important. It won't look weird. And the tip of the earth, tip of the head, all of these interiors. Some of you might think, is this really necessary? Do you need to do this? I go, well, no, you don't need to do anything like this, but it's just whatever you think makes something look better. And I think this, I see the benefit of doing it from an aesthetic point of view. It has nothing to do with wrong or right. It's just, it's whatever your aesthetic preferences. And for me, it's like I think it adds, so I definitely do it. Others might not think this is such a big deal and I'm overcomplicating the process. That's fine. I just find that it, purely from an aesthetic point of view, it works a lot better and it looks a lot nicer, in my opinion, than not doing it. But it doesn't mean you have to agree with me, you know. Just do whatever you think looks good. And that's why I do it, because I think it looks good. Okay, we just have a few more things. And it's nice that it highlights the areas I've rounded, so that way I can quickly see the ones that I haven't done. And we'll go ahead and do these really quick. Do that over there. Yep. Okay. We're almost there. We're getting there. Okay, I think we just have the outer ones on this left side. Okay. Oh, got to do these. Now let me address these here. I think we have, didn't do these. I'm going to cheat. Clone this, go to the reflect tool, find a central anchor point, reflect that over, save this little time. I think we got all of the ones. Now, there's some rounds that I saved for last, like these, because I want these to be bigger, like that. I think that looks good. Then I want, oops, wrong one. In my opinion, I think these two icons are too close. I always get them mixed up. This is the rounding, this is the path scribe. I think they could have done something here to better reflect that. Then we'll round there and round there because it's coming from the shadows, so I think that looks better. And then we'll fix this, but one thing I want to do is I want to round this inner part of the eye like that. And up here, I wanted this to go into around here. and over here. I think that just looks better. I think there is one more. Oh, yeah. This part here. So the reason why this happens is because this is just a straight line. It's almost thinking of it as a line, not a corner. Even though technically it's a corner, it's just the angle is 90 degrees. So it's not going to round. You can't go to the corner widget. It doesn't show up. You go to the dynamic corners, it won't activate. So how do you fix something like this? Well, this is where I would take a shape, like a rectangle shape, just so you can see it. Let's go ahead and color it like this. And I bring it up to right about there. And I'd select this shape and I go unite. Why'd I do that? Well, it's changed the color. We'll change that back to white. But if I zoom in, you can see this is like that. And so if I go, well, okay, here's the frustrating part about Illustrator. At a certain size, the corner widget won't work. That's one frustrating aspect about how they implemented it. Now, if I go to dynamic corners, you can see it's working. But their rounding of 2 anchor points at the same time, in my opinion, is a little wonky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this anchor point, click on the crown in the path scribe. Dynamic corners. Click on the crown and then round it. No, see, that's not the way it works. I don't even use that feature in Astute even. Why Illustrator can't make rounding work at this small? I don't get it. Why limit it? It's digital. You have zoom that goes to 12,000%. Why can't you have rounding on something like this? Why do you say, nope, too small, not going to be able to round it? So what you could do is just select this path, and I'm going to go to Path Scribe and do it that way. Don't use the object, add anchor path, add anchor point, or else it'll add anchor points on every segment. We just want to do this one. So I'm going to click on that segment, go to Path Scribe, go to their option menu, and go add point to selected segments. Like this, it'll say how much. I'm going to do 1, so we'll do that. You can see it added that there. Then I'm going to go here. I'll go back to the rounding tool, and I'm just going to round it so it hits that anchor. And now if I go ahead and deselect my artwork, you can see it's added a nice little subtle round. Now that looks pretty big, but if you zoom out, you can see it kind of matches the aesthetic we have going. So that's how I'd fix it. Kind of a pain that you have to do that. But I think this looks really nice now, and I think it's going to work really well. So let's go ahead and color it to see what we have. Of course, what I had done is once I get to this point, I'll print it out and draw on it. Now, because I didn't build any of this yet, I actually printed out my sketch, my black and white rough. Let's turn this off. And you can see it's just my pencil sketch that I filled in. And then I figured out the coloring. And this coloring was figured out using black, is obviously the outline black. This dark gray is going to be applied here, so on and so forth. So this is how I'm thinking of it. This muzzle part's going to be white. The eyes will be gold. The lighter gray would be here. So I'm going to select this. We're going to go to, I don't know, 40% maybe, and go to multiply. And I'm going to lock that, turn on our base vector art here. And then on our colors, these are just going to be, these are the colors I derived from the original Bad Wolf sketch. And we just want to go ahead and create the shapes that we need here. We have all the shapes that we can color. I'm just talking about these subtle shapes here. So I want to create these shapes that are on the side. So I'm going to create a new layer. Usually I have this all built and I just talk through it, but I didn't build anything this time. So we're going to call these shading shapes. Or, because they're not all shading. Let's call it detail shapes. Like that. We'll click OK. And as long as we have our build layer unlocked, that means it'll still interact with our art down below. So we'll go here. I'll select an outline. I'm going to go to the arc tool. I'm going to start here. And I'm going to build this highlight. This will be just a white highlight on the edge perimeter of the ear. Like that. Doesn't have to be perfect on one side. We're just going to close it because we'll intersect it with the shape here. I'll do the same thing here on the top side of the head. Again, I use the same principles where I just use my drawing to guide me. I don't care about the other side. Then I go here, I'll adjust this Bezier handle. I want this to be kind of an elegant flowing sliver type of shape. Doesn't have to be even as wide as my drawing, something like that. Maybe make it a little bent down there, like that. That looks fine. We'll do the same thing on this. It'll be a white shape that sits on top of the light gray that will eventually fill this cheek kind of shape in. And by the way, since I'm only doing it on one side, it's again symmetric building. I'll just reflect it to the other side once I have these shapes built. Like that. This part doesn't matter. We just need to close the shape. Like this. We have one here. This one's a little different. Notice I'm going to zoom in here because I want this to follow this geometry up. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'll just build this shape here from point to point like this. Snap it. So I created that. Select the end of this path I just built. And this is where I will go to the extend path. I'll extend this geometry up to here. My drawing isn't completely accurate. That's okay. Then I'll go here. And I'll create this shape. And then I'll close this like that. Now I'm going to add an anchor here. Why am I doing that? Because I want to not okay, then I'm going to go like this because I want it just to capture this part. This doesn't need to replicate again. Actually, we'll just go like that. I can go into isolation mode, join those two anchors, so now that's a closed path. Vector building doesn't have to be pretty as you're building, just as long as the end result's going to look good. That's all it counts. Let's go ahead and create this simple little shape. That'll be, I'll find a central anchor point. We'll create kind of like a reflective light on the bottom of the chin. This will also be white. And I can just take the chin shape and I can clone that. I'm going to move that to the layer we're on so you can see it. And then bring this to the front. Oops, that's on that layer. Bring this to the front, select this, and go minus front. So that's all we created there. I think the only other shapes we need to create now, other than filling the color on the base shapes of the artwork, is this little kind of shadow shape that's going to be the muzzle or the color that's above the eyes. These are all just shadowing using, in this case, the lightest gray here. So I'm going to select this to find out right about, I think I'm going to go right about there. Go up here, then use the arc tool. Oops, let's go ahead and color it. There we go. And then I'll build out the rest of it. I just love this tool. This tool is like transformed how I build vector art. It's just so much faster now. I remember when I went to India in 2019 for an Adobe Summit, they invited me to be part of they actually wanted me to demonstrate certain tactics of building that I use on a daily basis. So we were in one of their meeting rooms, and they were beaming this to other engineers offsite or whatever. And I was showing them this feature. I'm going, this is one of the best intuitive vector building features, and it's impossible to do in Adobe Illustrator. I just don't think they would implement it as well. And that part's going to look great. And this will be an easy one here because all we have to do is build this line. That's it. This one will be super easy. So I'll start here. I'll probably go from here, get a smooth anchor, come down to here, find where this anchor is, pull this out to start getting this to be a smooth one, adjust it, something like that. I'm going to retract this handle with the anchor point tool, and then we don't have to be precise at all with the rest of the shape because it won't matter like that. Okay, so we have everything needed now. So we're going to just turn off our drawn shading. Do we have anything? Oh, I guess just this was on that layer. Well, actually, let's do this. We'll just select everything that's that color, and we'll move it to the detail shapes. Let's go ahead and color our base artwork since we have the colors established. Black is black. We don't need to do anything there. This is going to remain white. We'll select this. This is going to become this dark gray. We'll select the interior of the ears. This will be light gray. These here will be the light gray. The bottom shapes under the pupils of the eye, these will be a dark gray. And then these will be dark gray, like that. And now I can't remember, so I'm going to turn on our sketch. Okay, we're going to make this light gray. And then everything else will be those shapes we created. Oh, I forgot the eyes. These are going to be this nice golden color. That looks cool. Let's turn on these shapes now. This is where I'll take this shape and I'll clone it, Command-C, Command-F, or I just hit the F3 key. I'm going to do that twice so we have two shapes that we made from it. And I'm going to select the first shape, select this shape, go intersect, and this will become white. Select this shape, select this shape, intersect, that'll become white. I'm going to select this shape, clone it, select this shape, intersect. Intersect again means wherever they overlap, that's the shape it creates. I'm going to color this a light gray. Maybe white. I don't know. I might come back to that. Let's do this shape, clone it, Command-C, Command-F, select this shape, intersect. That will be white like that. I think that looks good. I'm almost thinking, now that I'm looking at this, I don't even like that. I'm not even going to use it. So that's okay. You can make those decisions. Select this. I'm going to go Unite. You want to make sure it's a compound. Then I'll make a copy of the muzzle shape, for lack of a better name. Command C, Command F, select this, go intersect. It'll revert back to a group, so I just turn it back to a compound, and then this can be colored the light gray. Just add nice shadowing under the nose and above the eyes, like that. That looks good. And then this last shape, this will color white. So we have everything we need, so we'll select these detail shapes that are all on the left, like this. And we'll go ahead and clone them or copy them. Command C, Command F, find a central anchor point. In this case, I'll go up at the very top here and reflect those over like that. And I think we have a pretty cool wolf design done here. Now, obviously, if this project goes through, this will be one of the directions I show them, of course. But I'll also probably do another one. And you can see, like, I decided not to put that highlight in here because it doesn't add anything. It just made it more complex. And I want it as simplified and deduced from the complexity of a photographic reference to a digital motif. Now, one thing I might add to this, now that I'm thinking about it, is I think it always looks good. And we're going to make this white, so I'll just select that. Then I'll select the elliptical tool. And I'm going to create a white highlight. Probably not there. Ooh, I like that. I'm going to zoom in. Notice when you first make a shape, there's a center point. This works great to align it like that. I'll copy it. I'll go over here. So even though this is symmetric, the light should be symmetric, which means if you put it there, it might work, but I think it'd look better because this is just the part of the body. It only reflect on the, the eyeball part. So I think I'm going to put it over something like that. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, I like that. So that's what I do. Now, obviously, this is probably going to have a type lock up if it's a project that actually goes through, but I wanted to build this because I'm hungry like a wolf, and I know this movie is somewhat a different breed of content, but hopefully you enjoyed it and learned a few things along the way to make your vectors howl. I love adding puns. Okay. If you like People of Process channel, give this movie a like. I really do appreciate that. That helps the algorithm. Don't ask me how. I have no idea. That's just what YouTube tells us. Now, those who comment on my videos, that's awesome. I always respond to them, always looking for any ideas you might have of content you'd like to see. That helps me to create new content to help you, the audience. And obviously, the best way you can support, and I'm obviously going to say that, is become a member, which means you're going to get all of these free assets that I create over the years. And that goes for the previous ones I've given out. So if you've seen that and you become a member, just request them. I'll give you all the links. You can download it. Eventually, I'm going to build a page for members. I just been so busy, I haven't gotten around to that. So until next time, thank you for watching People of Process. I truly do hope the methodologies I show, the content I show helps you to improve your own creative process.